Hey everyone, so this is Elementary Season 5, Episode 10, called Pick Your Poison. So basically the episode starts off with Sherlock arriving back at home and sees a chessboard in the house on the first floor, which wasn't there before. Turns out it's a chessboard that he was using it was a chessboard part of a 78-year-old murder case that occurred back in 1938. And the reason it's up there now is because of the fact that Shinwell fixed it up for him as a gift to, or pay him for helping him out. And then Sherlock drops the bomb that it was evidence in a 78-year-old murder case. And so I'm over here sitting I'm over here sitting just laughing my ass off at this whole irony. Because it's just I don't know, it was just funny as hell. I was just like, yo, really? Anyway, so Sherlock gets told that Shinwell was planning to continue to take SBK down by Joan, and it's mad Shinwell isn't out of SBK. Sherlock was figuring that once Sherlock had, wiped the gun clean of Shinwell's fingerprints, Shinwell will just, automatically get out of the gang and not want to be a CI anymore. But that wasn't the case, so Sherlock is mad about that. Because he feels that since he committed a felony for Shinwell should leave the gang and everything. Joan then gets a text from Marcus and is told to meet him at the morgue by herself. So once there, Joan is told the dead person on the slab is, maybe I shouldn't call it a slab, but you know what I mean. The dead person is Jeffrey Banks, who was an opioid addict and OD'd on oxycodone. The 78th precinct had caught it, but a friend of Marcus's who works in that particular precinct told him about the case. Marcus explains that they're trying to find that the 87th is trying to find a doctor who wrote the prescription online, since there is a rule in place saying that doctors must be sure addicts aren't going from doctor to doctor to doctor, getting every single one of them to write the same prescription for them. Marcus makes sure that Joan doesn't know the guy, and when she says he doesn't, Marcus drops the bomb that the doctor who wrote the prescription was apparently her. And you all know it wasn't her. We all know that. But the DA doesn't know that, apparently. So anyway, back at the precinct, Joan is questioned by an Agent Ritter, who is part of the DEA, and Gregson and Sherlock are there to help her out. Ritter then explains that Banks is not just the only one who had a prescription with Joan's name on it. It was a slew of many people who had prescriptions supposedly written by her. Joan explains she hadn't practiced medicine 10 years, but Ritter asks any law enforcement agent or detective would ask. He asks why he kept her license up, and Sherlock explains it's just pride at play here, because any person, regardless of if it was Joan or someone else, would keep up their license, because they devoted so many years to becoming a doctor in the first place. So why throw it all away? I mean, unless you had your license revoked or suspended or whatever, there's no reason why they wouldn't, keep that up, since they spent 10 plus years trying to become a doctor. Anyway, so Ritter says that there isn't any evidence of Joan's identity being stolen, and when he says that, Sherlock tries to get information out of Ritter again, but Ritter doesn't budge. Once outside, Marcus is told that by Joan that they suspended her license, put pharmacies on alert to not fill her prescriptions. And after Gregson leaves, Marcus tells her that the address that was printed on the prescription led to a mailbox store with no security cameras. And just Joan's name is on the box, and it's associated with a prepaid cell phone that anyone could have used. Marcus then also tells them that he has an address for the pharmacy Banks used to fill his prescription, which is in Hoboken, New Jersey. And Joan isn't surprised because if you're using a prescription, an illegal prescription pad from a doctor who is in one state, and then go to across the state border to go into another state to use that prescription, the pharmacy wouldn't be as suspicious about it, if at all. So apparently it was handwritten by the prescription was handwritten, so they wouldn't have a sheet of paper the imposter wrote on, like an undersheet that the imposter wrote on, to look at the signature. So Joan decides to go to the pharmacy by herself, and Sherlock decides to pay a visit to a detective in the Bronx. You see Sherlock visiting the detective in the Bronx, whose name is Guzman. Sherlock then tells Guzman to stay away from Shinwell because he's part of SBK. Joan is then seen talking to the pharmacist, but the pharmacist is reluctant at first. Joan then tells the pharmacist that she isn't asking as a police consultant, but as a real doctor, since whose name was actually written on, used for the prescription. Joan goes on further to say that she either wrote the script herself and knows exactly what's on it, or she didn't, and the pharmacist will be penalized for filling it. The pharmacist then lets Joan see the prescription that the imposter wrote on, and sees the signature is pretty good, even though it's not her handwriting. Joan looks closer on this piece of paper that the script was written on, and realizes that in between her first and last name there is the letter J on it, which signifies her Chinese name, and she only used that particular J for a short period of time professionally in a specific hospital. So she's thinking that that she is she had previously worked with the imposter, because that's the only way they could have gotten it. Which I want to note that I thought maybe most likely the person who stole her identity was someone that she was very close with, both professionally and personally, but it didn't turn out that way. I mean, I was somewhat right, but not completely. So it's still someone she worked with, but maybe not as close as close as I thought she was. Anyway, so Joan then goes back home, and Sherlock is sitting in front of the chessboard with the crash dummy laying over it with a knife in his back. It must be a hoot living with him. Like, it really must be a hoot living with him, because it's like there is no shortage of surprises that are in store for her. So, yeah, it must be a serious hoot living with him. Anyway, Sherlock tells her that he had a hard time hacking into the security database to figure out who made the changes at the hospital, because someone had to have made the changes at the hospital specifically to get Joan's address changed. And when he couldn't figure it out, he turned his attention back to the chessboard, but not before finding out that 3 other doctors had their identities stolen, and their addresses changed to mailbox stores. Marcus is then where we hear is canvassing the other stores. So Sherlock tells Joan as they're kind of like sitting there, that he told Guzman not to take Shinwell on as a CI because he believes that Shinwell can't successfully play multiple roles, and proceeds to tell him all the things that Shinwell failed at. One of them being the fact that Whitlock had misled Shinwell into believing that Shinwell was a registered CI, but actually wasn't. And before they can argue any further about that, Marcus sends them an email telling them one of the mailbox stores paid off. Attached inside the email is a photo of a woman there that either from a surveillance camera or a picture that Marcus took himself. I don't know, but it turns out Joan knows her, and they worked at the hospital at the same time. And her name is Franny Krieg. They didn't associate professionally since Krieg worked in rheumatology, but they did somewhat associate, but it wasn't on a regular enough basis to really be, I guess, that close to her. Anyway, so once Sherlock and Joan go to Krieg's office, which is in Jamaica, Queens, I think it is, they find it empty, but Sherlock smells gunpowder. They go into the back where Krieg's office is and find her dead, along with another woman next to her who is also dead as well. All 5 boxes that contain the prescription pads for all the doctors she was using or posing as are empty. And there were $20. So turns out there were 20 pads per box, and each pad had 100 pages in it. So that comes out to 10,000 possible opportunities for someone overdosing, basically. Sherlock then explains to Gregson that both women were killed facing the killer, that the cabinets were opened after the fact, since the blood, dripped on the floor in a different spot than than if the doors were closed, and the receptionist left before the 2 women were killed. Krieg apparently had a habit of sending the receptionist home once the last appointment arrived, and in this case, the receptionist left at 4 p.m. Sherlock also explains to Gregson that Krieg stole the identities of 4 doctors, including Watson. The other woman on the floor is the mother of a patient who was there for consultation, or what appeared to be a consultation. Gregson says he will tell the DEA about Krieg, which get them off Joan's back. At the house of the woman who was killed in Krieg's office, her name is Marla, by the way, that we later in the scene find out. Anyway, so they talk to Marla's family. Ethan tells Marcus and Joan that it wasn't unusual for Marla to go to appointments without him. The appointment with Krieg was set at the same exact time as his physical therapy. So he wasn't there because he was apparently at therapy. Joan asks about Ethan's diagnosis, and Ethan tells her it is a non-specific autoimmune disorder. I'll get back to that, because I had very strong suspicions the second he said that. I had very strong suspicions. But I will say that until, well, no, I'll say it now. Anyway, so I was suspicious the second he said that because of the fact that nowadays modern medicine can help diagnose you quickly. Even if not quickly, eventually you will get a diagnosis. This kid is 18 years old, or at the time I thought he was 17, but still, the kid's either at this point in the episode, I thought this kid was at least 17, almost 18. So I was thinking, in my mind, there's no way that a doctor would not be able to diagnose this kid for over 15 years. Or for over 10 years, I should say. There's no way no doctor that this kid has been to would not be able to diagnose him for over 10 years. Just no way that every doctor he's been to would not be able to, diagnose him properly. No way. I mean, maybe back before in times before the 80s or something, maybe pre 1980, most likely. But I mean, after 1980, you kind of can't not have a diagnosis for someone and then expect people to assume that what this was Munchausen syndrome by proxy. There's no way. And I immediately once Ethan said that he had been diagnosed with non-specific autoimmune disorder, I knew straight away when he said that his mother has Munchausen syndrome by proxy, because there's no way that every single doctor that he's been to would not be able to diagnose him for over 10 years. I mean, for over 10 years this is happening? No damn way. No way whatsoever. So either she has Munchausen by proxy, or every doctor that they've been to has been a shit doctor, which the second option really isn't that feasible, because if they're a shit doctor, they wouldn't have lasted this long. So yeah, so she had to have Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And I didn't pick up on it until at first when he said that his mom goes to his appointments without him. I mean, it was the whole non-specific autoimmune disorder thing that had my spice and senses tingling. So I was like, no way, no damn way. I was like, nope, no damn way that they wouldn't have figured out his disorder by now, and had not have a specific autoimmune disorder figured out. There's no way. I was like, no, And it's pretty much confirmed by the end of the episode. So anyway, before we get to that, Patrick, Ethan's father, gives an alibi. He was watching a golf tournament with a friend. Marcus then tells them that Marla may have been involved in Krieg's pill mill, as they call it, but it also looks like she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Ethan then says that he remembers a guy in Krieg's waiting room a couple weeks prior who was older, in his 20s, and was shaking really bad as well as sweating. Shinwell then we go over to Shinwell, where he goes to meet with Tallboy to pick up a bag of money, but gets spooked when he realizes the big guy has been following him. Shinwell then loses the guy in a store and makes his way to Sherlock's and Joan's place. Shinwell tells Sherlock of the big guy following him. Turns out the big guy, I think is a French national or a French or a national where French was speaking predominantly. I don't know for sure, but something. Anyway, so Sherlock then tells Shinwell about his apprehensions of Shinwell staying on as an informant, and asks if he will, at least think about not being an informant. And Shinwell says he will. During the conversation, Marcus had started calling, but Sherlock made it go to voicemail. And then when Shinwell leaves, Sherlock listens to the voicemail and hears about an interview of a mugging victim who was shot about 2 years prior, and the bullets matched the ones taken out of Marla and Krieg. After listening to the guy's story, Sherlock says he's lying because the glass from the window that embedded into his shoulder came from the same direction as the bullet. So the mugger was lying or the guy got shot from inside the car. Sherlock assumes that the apparent victim was attempting to steal the car, and the would-be victim shot him through the window. The guy says he was there to, carjack the couple, and that the car was a silver Lexus, and they were leaving a furniture store named Ridgely's. Joan then asked to speak outside to them for a minute and tells Sherlock and Marcus that Marla's full name was Marla Ridgely Moore. So she's an heiress to the Ridgely furniture empire, and Marcus is confused as to what that has to do with Krieg and her pill mill. Sherlock says it doesn't necessarily mean that the two are connected necessarily, and that's the point. The same person who shot the carjacker 2 years prior also killed Marlon Krieg a few days before, so it seemed, and stole the past to make it look like it was someone who wanted to write prescriptions. So they've been solving the wrong murder. Gregson, Marcus, and Sherlock serve a warrant to search Patrick's home. Patrick says he didn't kill Marla because he was not in her or her father's will, but Sherlock explains his son is, and when Ethan turns 18, he will still need medical care. Patrick reveals he and Marla were carjacked 2 years, or no, he and because he was 2 years prior, Patrick was having an affair with one of Marla's employees named Janine Roth, and he was in the car with the woman he was having an affair with, Janine, at the time of the carjacking, and so he didn't report the carjacking because he didn't want Marla to know about both the carjacking, which would then lead to his affair. Patrick says that after he shot the carjacker, he left the gun in the toolbox in Marla's garage and hasn't seen it since. Marcus says they didn't find the gun in Marla's garage, but Patrick says, well, that can't be right because he left it there. Well, either they didn't find the gun, they didn't search properly for the gun, or someone had taken the gun, because apparently there's tons of people going in and out of the house, staff, doctors, therapists, physical therapists, you name it. So Marcus reveals that Patrick's friend told them that Patrick called him to get their alibi straight. So, or it seemed like they were trying to get their alibi straight. Joan then goes to speak with Ethan about the gun that was used and how it was registered to his father, and Ethan doesn't want to believe his father may have had something to do with his mother's death. So, back at the house now, Joan tells Sherlock that Patrick and his friend ordered a pizza during the tournament, and that the pizza delivery guy recognized Patrick since Patrick paid. She then tells Sherlock that she will register as a CI. Marla then called one of the numbers, or it turns out that Marla called one of the numbers Krieg set up for one of her pill mill identities he stole, that Krieg stole, and then Sherlock reveals that Marla also called some of the doctors whose identities were stolen at the hospital. Like she called the specific hospital and called the some of the people there. Joan says that she has a thought of something, but they will need to get warrant. Joan explains to Gregson they will need it for Krieg's medical file on Ethan, because they figured out that Marla was causing his illness because of Munchausen-by proxy syndrome, and has been making Ethan sick since he was a kid. Marla then would be extremely involved in Ethan's treatments and go so far as to go to his doctor's appointments without him, because that's the only way that they can really, people with Munchausen by proxy can really do this. The illness itself was a mystery, but none of the symptoms Ethan was experiencing was significant on their own. Yet together, they are signs doctors are taught to look out for, and the pair think Ethan killed Krieg and his mother. Joan says that Ethan could have told everyone that he went to therapy, but instead canceled the appointment and went to Krieg's office to kill her and his mother. Gregson then wonders why Ethan killed Krieg, and Sherlock says that if Ethan left Krieg alive, Krieg would have known the killer was Ethan. A little later, Sherlock and Joan explain to Gregson in another room that Ethan was Krieg's patient for a little over a year. Martha was running out of tests to have run on Ethan for an illness that he didn't have and that she was creating. So she went shopping I guess you could say, like in quotations and everything, for a new doctor, and accidentally stumbled on Krieg's pill mill operation. Sherlock found a voicemail that Marla left one of the doctor's Krieg's stole identity-wise. So on it, she says that she's looking for a new doctor since the current one is dropping the ball. She says on the voicemail that Ethan's been in treatment since he was 3. She tells this new doctor that Ethan was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis, but the symptoms never added up to the disease. And at this point, that's when Sherlock stops the voicemail and explains that Marla told Krieg the symptoms started at age 6, not age 3, and she never mentioned to Krieg that Ethan had juvenile arthritis. So Joan says that that's what must have tipped off Krieg. And Sherlock reveals that there were two extra appointments with the Moores. One was a week before the murders, and Krieg wrote in her notes that she spoke to Ethan alone while his mother waited outside in the waiting area and shared her discovery with Ethan. Gregson wonders why Krieg never called the cops about a mother abusing her son, and Joan says Ethan was 18 and decided to talk to him as an adult. They then think that Krieg played the voicemail for Ethan and made a follow-up appointment for the following week. Marcus then calls and tells them that the housekeeper told him that Ethan was visibly upset after the second search, and went to his room. Then heard a car pick him up about a half hour later and left with him of the night earlier, or that previous night or whatever. Anyway, so back at the house, Joan tells Sherlock that the physical therapist was on a Skype call with a boyfriend at the time of the murders, and just before her Skype call, she went to go keep her appointment with Ethan, but once she got into the house, Ethan canceled the appointment. The physical therapist stayed in the house a little while to adjust the equipment and assumed that Ethan was still upstairs. So Joan then revealed she had gotten something from Agent Ritter. Agent Ritter had expanded his search for the missing prescription pads, and they were either successful in they were either successfully stopping people from filling the prescriptions, or they managed to find prescriptions where it was filled, but they hadn't gotten there in time. And Sherlock realizes that one of the dots on the map is of the night of the murder, and they think the guy Ethan described in Krieg's waiting room that he saw a couple weeks earlier helped him. Ethan is then caught, and Joan speaks with him. She tells him she knows where Marla was getting the pills to poison Ethan with. Marla's father, Sam, who I guess was the CEO of all the furniture stores and the furniture empire, was sick for years, and so Marla would take Sam's heart, thyroid, blood pressure, and anti-seizure medications to poison Ethan. The family had known for years that the Sam's pills were going missing, but they assumed that it was assumed that a nurse that was taking care of Sam was stealing them, so they fired her. But they never thought to suspect Sam's own daughter of stealing the pills. Joe then explains that any number of the drugs she stole could cause his illness to appear like an autoimmune disease, and that since he isn't taking them anymore, his symptoms should improve. Ethan then asks Joan to go to bat for him by telling the judge that she understands why he did it, but Joan doesn't because she feels that even though Krieg was running a pill mill and selling illegal prescriptions, that she still tried to, throw a lifeline to Ethan and help him in any way that she could. And she didn't have to, because she was doing something illegal herself, so she didn't have to tip him off about what his mother was doing. But she did it anyway, and yet Ethan killed her anyway. So Joan leaves without taking Ethan up on his offer. Then the last scene of the whole episode is when Shinwell goes back home and Sherlock is waiting for him with the chessboard. Sherlock proposes that in exchange for helping Shinwell master the art of deception for his job as a CI, Shinwell will be Sherlock and Joan's eyes and ears out on the street when they need it. And Shinwell accepts this offer. So that's the entire episode. I liked the episode, but at one point I was kind of hoping that they hadn't killed off Krieg, because I wanted to see her be put in jail. So I was at one point I was disappointed that they had killed off Krieg, and and didn't make her pay and be put in prison for what she did. Because Joan, I love Joan. Like, you don't see enough badass women doing the right thing on television, who are women of color. So I wanted justice for Joan, and killing Krieg was, kind of a cop-out, because, in my opinion, if this person was a long-term villain on the series, then okay, I can understand them killing Krieg off, but this Krieg was just a one-time villain, so I wanted Krieg to go to jail. So I was kind of disappointed in that aspect, but I liked the episode overall. Now this is the mid-season finale, so the Elementary won't come back on until January 8th, I think they said it was. And yeah, January 8th, because that's a Sunday. So that's when they're coming back on, January 8th. So until then, all I really have to recap and review now is Vikings. So whenever that comes back on, or until Wednesday, I don't really have much to recap and review. So I will see you guys on Thursday this week for my recap and review of Vikings. And I'm feeling, if anybody who watches my Vikings recap and review, who also watches this, I am feeling a little bit better than I was last Thursday. My throat is slightly sore, but it's not that bad. Doesn't extremely hurt when I swallow, but it's not, my throat doesn't hurt that badly, so that's always good news. So hopefully I won't be terribly sick anymore in the future, but yeah, with all that said, I'll see you guys Thursday for Vikings. Bye.